let's talk about fonts for a minute and My Little Pony and
Yes.
how fonts can come and bite you in the ponytail. What happened here to Hasbro, Emery?
So I found this sort of by chance and then dove into the rabbit hole. It is, there's that podcast, Surprisingly Awesome. This is surprisingly awesome. So Hasbro's My Little Pony has in the past been pretty aggressive about, and I'm speaking from my research here, so I might be incorrect here, but Hasbro, from what I understand, has been pretty aggressive about shutting down unauthorized fan remakes or, not fan fiction, but use of their own IP, which is ironic because apparently they have been using the font for My Little Pony's title. They were unauthorized use of it. So that font is owned by a man that is pulling up the article now that is issuing a lawsuit against Hasbro for unauthorized use of the font Generation B, which is the font used in the title for My Little Pony. Now, that in and of itself is sort of a great karmic article that makes you feel warm and fuzzy that, corporations that try to shut down users are getting their own comeuppance. But the plot thickens. So first, there's really two interesting issues here. First is whether or not fonts are copyrightable, which is not immediately clear. Traditionally, typefaces are not copyrightable, according to the Compendium of U.S. Copyright Office Practices, 3rd edition. Generally, typefaces, typed fonts, lettering, calligraphy, and typographic ornamentation are not registerable. The fonts that are registerable under copyright are if there are any sort of artistic serifs, or to the extent that the font in itself has been artistically enhanced. Those artistic additions might be copyrightable. But because it's just a typeface, they say that that's simply a form before, not an expression, and so not copyrightable. But fonts are not typefaces. Fonts actually refer to the software package that contains the typeface. So you can sue under copyright for misuse of fonts because it's a licensing issue. The fonts are copyrightable, the typefaces are not. It's all very interesting. There's a new media rights article that my friend Gabe Estrada wrote up, I think that we have in the show notes as well. So yes, they are copyrightable, so this can go forward. But the other interesting side of this story is that the fan community has known that this has been copyrighted for a long time. So one of the reasons that Hasbro has sent takedown notices to fan art for My Little Pony is that it misuses the font, which is ironic, obviously.
Which they have no rights to and haven't licensed.
Exactly. So there's another fan-made font called Celestia Medium Redux. It's a fan-made font meant to emulate the My Little Pony font because, in case you weren't aware, by the way, there is a very strong community of My Little Pony fans on the internet, and they like to make fan modifications and fan art. And this font, Celestia Medium Redux, was created in part because they were getting takedown notices on the font. So they rasterized it, and someone released this on the internet anonymously. And people have been using that because, again, remember, it's the font itself, the software package itself, that's copyrightable under a software license, not the underlying typeface. So that's just an interesting element that, this is this is something that Hasbro has been trying to shut down, even though they didn't have the rights to do so before. The fans have already responded, and now finally the actual copyright owner of the font is coming after Hasbro themselves. So it's a very interesting copyright mess of a story this week.
In IRC, Strengths is saying, say it. Say bronies. All right, we've said it.
I'm not going to say it.
We're not afraid to say bronies.
It says, don't say bronies.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and it takes us full circle back to Steve Jobs at Reed College and the fonts that
Jobs was a brony? You heard it here first. What? I'm sorry.
No,
Continue.
Jobs wasn't a brony that I know of. Who knows? He was obsessed with fonts, however. So I do not know. My memory does not cast back far enough to be aware of whether Apple had font issues when it released its first word processor that was one of the first to font IP issues to allow you to pick a font and change your fonts. But they may well have.
I don't know either,
and they
something to dig into.
Yeah, they may well have had to license them.